Let's make this really simple. I'll start with a few critical thinking questions. What kind of future do you want for you and your children? Really think about that. Now, take that vision and ask yourself, is humanity on the right path? Are we doing the right things, taking the right actions, and are the right people in positions of responsibility to enable this vision to manifest, not just for yourself, but for everybody worldwide? Or are we headed for a complete collapse of society and civilization with the darkest of days yet to come because we haven't been vigilant and we've allowed the wrong people to take control of the reins of power and wrest it away from all of us via decades of targeted deception and thought control? What is the answer you came up with? Those of us who are fully awake to reality and aware of those who have taken over complete control of all government bodies worldwide know exactly where we are headed. At least you should know by now. But again, I ask, what kind of future do you want? And how exactly do you plan on bringing that future to fruition? What are you willing to do to make it a reality in a world that is currently run by self-serving, narcissistic sociopaths intent on nothing less than the complete enslavement of humanity in a fully controlled digital prison grid? Have you figured out yet that our common enemy will never stop assaulting or abusing us until we have completely submitted to all of their demands, and even then, they will continue to sadistically terrorize us? We know about all they have done already to traumatize the world at their whim and create fear in the majority of populations with their control and manipulation of the predominant media channels of all nations. We know what they have done to the educational systems of the world and how they have converted them into virtual prisons and indoctrination camps for our children. We know of the lies they tell about how our bodies really work and how they have created a multi-trillion-dollar annual industry that preys on the ignorance of the masses because the majority of people have slothfully refused to take the personal responsibility to learn for themselves how to live in optimal health. We know they manufacture illegal wars of aggression and install puppet regimes so as to steal natural resources and subjugate the inhabitants of poor nations to extract these resources and create products for slave wages so that they can create illegitimate and obscene wealth for themselves. We know how truly evil these people are and have known for most of our lives. Civilization is crumbling on every level of society by design, and still, I see most doing nothing, except for whatever it is they feel they are entitled to, and without a care in the world of the larger picture. What is the problem? I've said for many years now that ignorance, arrogance, and apathy will be the downfall of humanity, and that does seem to be the root of our problems. We have completely stagnated as a species and are experiencing the logical end of the life cycle of everything in nature that stagnates, dies, and decays. I see it every single day, and it continues to tear me apart because it doesn't have to be this way. But how do we get people to care, to stop this cycle in its tracks and realign this false paradigm with truth once again? I have thought about this for well over 14 years now, since I tried waking others up to the true nature of our reality and the evil in which we're all unwittingly and largely unknowingly immersed, only to be mostly ignored, ridiculed, and ostracized by those whom I have tried to enlighten. I've tried everything and have unlocked a few minds here and there, but obviously one person can only make so much of an impact all by themselves. Most people don't want to wake up to reality for an entire myriad of different reasons. And I still see people every single day doing what I did for years to no avail. Yet many of these same people I see continue down the same path in vain, even though these same people have shared the very video in which Yuri Bezmenov explains to the world in an interview from 1984 with G. Edward Griffin that once a person and or entire societies have been ideologically subverted, there is almost no matter of fact or truth that will sway their dogmatically held opinion. Their minds have essentially been hijacked. But most people stubbornly continue to focus on exposing the problems instead of realizing that our only way out of this mess is to unite and work together on creating and building the only viable and true solution. You see, what the majority fail to realize is that most people don't want to hear about problems. First, because they don't believe they exist to begin with, and second, because they have enough problems of their own and don't want to think about larger problems. So their minds just shut down and they ridicule or relegate the messenger to the lunatic fringe. That is, unless and until you can show them an actual viable solution to that problem. I have been repeating this message over and over for almost 2 years now, and still very few understand that the only way to defeat our common enemy is to create a united force and a system large and powerful enough to not only make their illegitimate authority impotent, but to attract all those who have been ideologically subverted to a better option than they have ever had in their entire lives. The enemy's greatest fear is that we unite and do exactly what I have just described, which is why they use so many of their resources to keep us divided, distracted, and focused on the problem of the moment. And that is where everyone is missing the mark. Those still trying to awaken the sleepers are essentially speaking from their soapboxes in a virtual echo chamber of people who already know the problems in hopes that their message will be seen by others. But the others who refuse to open their eyes have already shut these people out of their lives because they have chosen to align with the path of least resistance, to go along with the majority, and to mindlessly act on what the so-called authorities tell them to believe. So much of the effort I see being exerted every single day is being completely wasted because most people in this awakening community already know, and those who don't aren't tuning in. Also, the law of attraction proves over and over that where we focus our energy, thoughts, and intentions is what we will ultimately manifest in our lives. So all those who claim daily that this will, a very powerful word, be our future, are actually bringing that reality closer and closer with every single post and proclamation that they make. They are giving power to their enemy every time they give the enemy's plans the attention they don't deserve. In other words, if you want to end up in a nightmarish dystopia, keep on incessantly talking about the nightmarish dystopia, and you will ensure its arrival. It's as if there's an obsession of being able to say someday in the near future, "See, I told you so," after the collapse, as some sick way to ease their conscience. I don't and will never understand the compulsion with focusing on the negative unless you also offer the solution in the exact same thought. So we need to redirect our focus, not on the world into which our enemy is actively hurting all of humanity, but on a world in which we have the power and all sovereignty has been restored back to the individual. That has been the focus since I began my exhaustive work shortly after the latest Hegelian dialectical psyop began playing out on the world stage in early March of 2020. I thought for certain that this time, enough people would realize the dire straits to which humanity has finally fallen and want to do something to alter the path of our future, but sadly, very few seem to want to take the necessary action to create the better world we all want and deserve, as if it will magically just happen on its own, or a savior will come to our rescue at the 11th hour. That's the hopium effect that creates the massive apathy we see. I've laid out exactly how we create and get to that world in my work. But again, it seems very few people are interested in taking the time to look at it, even though to do so takes just a tiny, minute amount of the 15 years, and tens of thousands of hours of my life I have sacrificed to create this solution for the world without a single dime of pay. That's over a quarter of my entire life so far. Ask yourself how many people would be willing to sacrifice even a fraction of that time to anything without a guaranteed personal benefit. My only hope in doing all that I have done so far is so that someday I might actually be able to live out the rest of my life in a world of complete freedom in which every other living soul in this world can do the same. Because we have all created it in unison and with a cooperative spirit of love for one another and our natural world. Yet, people have attacked me as being selfish, arrogant, and narcissistic for doing what I have, for wanting this for the world, and giving up more than almost anyone else would be willing to give up to create this vision and potentially abundant reality. They've made me the bad guy because they are too lazy to imagine a better human condition and are more than happy to remain stranded on this sinking ship because I am actually offering a solution that would simply ask them to put in some personal effort. Everything I have proposed in all of my work is fully based in natural law and thus aligned with the laws of the Creator of our world. And nothing I have proposed is anything by which I don't already live my life. So there is absolutely zero hypocrisy in any of my work. And none of it takes away anything from anybody. But it does fully remove the ability of anyone or any group of people to impose their will upon others or claim any power or dominion over them as well. It is a system of social order in which all power and sovereignty is fully restored to the individual. I would have thought that people would be excited about this idea, but I suppose imagination and creativity has been removed from most people's psyche and intellect, as well as the ability to think critically in the 15,000 hours of compulsory government schooling to which most of us have been subjected in our lives. But not all of us were effective and have broken free of the ravages of a civilization so damaged that most have sold their souls to thoughtlessly blend into this profoundly sick society, operating in complete violation of most natural laws about which they are mostly oblivious. So the question now is, how do we create this new system and make the current one obsolete? Well, it's actually fairly simple, but most who can't even imagine a world of complete freedom wouldn't even consider just how easy it would be to fully reclaim our power. Or maybe they just believe it could never happen, so they just cast it out of their consciousness as an impossible and futile endeavor. If that's the case, they're right and already admitted defeat, because success in anything never comes from disbelief in a positive and laser-focused outcome. It comes from belief that success is inevitable when all energy is directed at this worthy and idealistic reality. The defeatist attitude is the result of generations of programmed nihilistic thinking and the false illusion that we are powerless to stand up against our oppressors. So let me ask you another few questions. What exactly do you think gives anyone in any government, non-governmental organization, or corporation any right to control your life or demand you do anything against your will? What do you falsely believe actually gives them any power over you in your life at all? And what makes you believe that you have to do what they say or demand of you, especially when it goes against your best interests, knowledge, intuition, and may even cause you great harm? Many will be left with a blank in attempting to answer those questions, but others will say ignorant things like the Constitution, their citizenship, the laws, the police, or it's just the way things must be to have a civil society. But they would be wrong on all accounts. I have already proven beyond any doubt in one of my videos that the Constitution was never intended to be perpetual and has no inherent authority at all. And any citizenship or laws created under such a constitution are nothing more than adhesion contracts based in constructive fraud. So what then gives them their power? I mean, other than what the communist murderer Mao Zedong claimed was the barrel of a gun? The answer to that question is threefold. First, their illegitimate power comes from the collective ignorance of our objective reality. But everything by which we are told we must abide is all operating in violation of natural law. So that alone renders their power illegitimate. However, from this pervasive ignorance comes the fear to challenge those imposing this illegitimate system on the people, because most live in a state of perpetual cowardice, thus creating a virtual prison for the entire society because of this communitarian ideology accepted by the mindless masses. And finally, with ignorance and the fear derived from it, we get compliance to do what we are told, and the majority going along to get along, whether we want to or not, simply to avoid any negative repercussions. And therein lies the root of the problem. So with every successive day we move forward by accepting this as our reality, talking ad nauseum about how wrong it is, how terrible our future will be, and by not taking the necessary actions to break free from these abhorrent legacy systems of enslavement, we are only destroying the one bright future we might have if we actually focused on creating it. Thus, we must shift our focus to creating the breakaway civilization, period. So, how do we break free and render our oppressors powerless? Well, it only requires a simple plan and a critical mass of people to implement that plan. That's it. I've laid out that plan in my work, and all we need to do so is to build to a critical mass of 10% of the population to tip the scales of power in our favor. To achieve any goal in life requires that we have a destination, a plan or roadmap to get there, and a structure of what life would look like once we got there. To achieve this goal on a societal level, we need to do this in unison, en masse, and have a common goal, not thousands of disparate and incongruent goals all at the same time. Because our collective enemy has a common goal, and they are using their billions, if not trillions, of ill-gotten wealth to ensure that it's implemented. However, if we unite as one massive force for good, all of their illegitimate money and wealth won't be worth a thing, because power belongs to those who claim it, not those who wrongfully impose it on others. What I am proposing is a macro solution to our collective macro problem, and that is the illegitimate power in the hands of illegitimate authority, organizations, and societal structures that create the pyramidal, top-down, command and control power paradigm that has ruled and oppressed humanity for millennia. It is time for that to change if we ever hope to have a world of complete freedom. What needs to happen is for everyone out there in the world who is awake to our reality to unite behind a single idea, a macro solution, in addition to working on their daily micro solutions that will help them to survive the rough roads we have yet to navigate in the coming months and years as the enemy works in tandem to further erode the fragile fabric of society. But without a common goal for our species as a whole, we will never create the world we want, and in the chaos, a new social order will be filled by our worst nightmares. To avoid this scenario, we must create the alternative before it all collapses. And we're running out of time because the collapse is already visible and imminent. Yes, it is great to have solutions to smaller local and personal problems, but it never ceases to amaze me how people believe that they can just somehow opt out of the system or go live off grid and create an intentional community and think that they will actually be left alone to live in peace by those who are bringing in the New World Order, the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, the Metaverse, and a fully transhumanist future. That is the same level of delusional thinking that has gotten us into this incredible mess we're in today. We're dealing with pure evil here, and the only way to counter it is to contain it and to ultimately render it obsolete. But the only way to contain it is to restore power back to where it belongs, and that is with the individual, along with the new societal structure that does not allow for the centralization of power ever again. It is actually the ultimate of all decentralization solutions being put forth in the world today. Except and unlike blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and smart contracts, there is no technological oversight or any systems that can be hacked or shut down because the power is actually held by all of the individuals in the society. Once people come to understand the power of natural law and realize this idea is fully based in that ideology, they would begin to adjust their perceptions about not only our current reality, but of their personal responsibilities in the coming new objective reality we are cooperatively building together as one united force. We don't need proof of work, as blockchain advocates argue is necessary to ensure legitimate transactions. That is the trap so many have been fooled into accepting as our coming reality because people just can't be trusted anymore. When what we really need is to restore honesty and integrity in our world and move away from the creep towards a panopticon future in which computers and AI control and know everything we do. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should or even need to. All we need to do is awaken to reality and work on ourselves. Blockchain and artificial intelligence solutions to a broken civilization are beyond ridiculous and only put in place to ultimately control us all. Additionally, private member associations or PMAs are not going to change the world either. Who controls the resources of the world? Who can manipulate the choke points of needed materials in the supply chains? They are already showing us their power over our food and energy supplies in front of our faces by blatantly lying about everything and destroying the model without remorse. Who writes and manipulates the laws with impunity if they don't like what you're doing? Do you think your garden vegetables are going to save the world? We need more than gardens to thrive and to defeat the enemy. How are you going to remove the power from the psychopaths creating all the chaos by design to collapse society? How do you plan on defending your property and your supplies from roaming bands of desperate and starving hordes? Because those days are on the horizon if we don't avert our tragic fate. Crime is through the roof already in most urban areas of the world, and it will eventually spread everywhere in a complete collapse scenario. So how about we focus on avoiding that at all costs? What I'm witnessing is that we're descending into tribalism instead of ascending towards a cooperative and thriving civilization that is truly necessary and vital to save us all. It's all playing out just as the social engineers have planned. And all those of you who selfishly think you'll be safe in the collapse because you've spent years prepping are just as much of the problem to a broken civilization as those creating the problem. We're all one, and we must unite as one to defeat our enemy. Unity is our only true hope and salvation at this point, and has been all along. Most just don't realize how bad things really were in this world, and most still don't. That has to change, but we must create the superior option before we can truly get the attention of the holdouts, the fence-sitters, and the conspiracy deniers. In the coming days, I will be releasing a series of videos as addendums to this one that show exactly what we need to do and the relatively simple steps it will take to reclaim our power in this world. I'm done waiting around for people to catch on to what I'm saying, and I'm frustrated beyond belief that others can't figure out the self-evident solution to the promised dystopia. They are not getting it, so I will tell everyone again what I've been saying for 2 years and have clearly laid out in all of my videos and documentation. I will continue to deliver this message of unity and individual empowerment until I finally see everyone begin to take the positive and responsible actions necessary to bring this vision to fruition, and we are moving cooperatively in the right direction to eliminate the power and oppression of the predator class from our world forever. From there, I will be able to begin building the structure, but I have no influence at all without tens of thousands behind me who have my back and supporting me and these ideas. So it's up to all of you to help make this the reality for our future. Thank you for listening. I love you all, and stay tuned for the final 3 parts of this series.